When a billionaire saw two girls humiliated, his amazing action revealed a life-changing secret. The lunchroom at Willow Creek High was loud, the laughter of the privileged echoing off the walls. But in the corner, Sarah and Mia tried to shrink into their seats. Their thrift store clothes were like markers, a sign in a world where every detail was scrutinized. Just then, a group of popular girls swaggered over, their perfectly manicured nails and designer clothes shifting as they approached. "Look at the charity cases," one sneered. "You two should really try to fit in. Maybe shop at a real store." They erupted in laughter as one of them splashed soda across the table, the sticky liquid soaking into Sarah's shirt, mixing with her mounting humiliation. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest. Mia brushed a tear away, but her spirit felt crushed. They had hoped for a day without ridicule, a small break from their late shifts at the diner, but instead, they were reminded of their struggle, balancing work and school, just to make ends meet. They brewed coffee and served burgers, all while dreaming of a brighter future. Across the room, Jack Thompson, a local billionaire, observed the scene with clenched fists. He grew up in Willow Creek, just blocks away, with dreams that felt invisible beneath the weight of older kids' mocking laughter. This humiliation resonated deep within him. He felt their pain like an old wound reopening. Without thinking, he stood up, ready to intervene, hoping to show Sarah and Mia they weren't alone. But as he approached, his plan backfired spectacularly. "Hey, leave them alone," he shouted. The popular girls turned, surprised, but they quickly regrouped and started making fun of Jack instead. "You're just as pathetic as them," one smirked. Sarah and Mia's faces flushed red with anger and shame. Jack's heart sank. He'd meant to help, but now he felt like a fool for thinking he could change things in an instant. That evening, the girls returned home disheartened, questioning every ounce of their self-worth. "What's the point?" Mia lamented. "We'll always be those girls." But unbeknownst to them, Jack lay awake, determined to confront his past. He wanted to reveal the secret that forged his success, a truth that worth isn't determined by clothes or status, but by perseverance and belief in oneself. As days passed, Jack sought Sarah and Mia once more. He approached them with sincerity, ready to share his truth. "I wasn't always a billionaire. I grew up scraping by, believing I was invisible. But it was the faith of those around me that made all the difference. You have greatness in you. It's time to show the world." Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With Jack's encouragement, a spark ignited inside Sarah and Mia. They began to stand taller, to reclaim their identity. It was a slow rise, but student by student, the tide began to shift. They were not just the girls from the diner anymore, they were hopeful warriors, ready to face their fears head-on. And now, as the annual school talent show loomed closer, a new challenge awaited them. Would they have the courage to step into the spotlight and share their story with everyone? Or would the weight of fear pull them back into the shadows? With emotions running high, they stood on the brink of transformation, hearts racing as the night grew nearer. The day of the talent show arrived, and excitement electrified the air at Willow Creek High. Colorful streamers hung from the ceiling, and a crowd gathered in the auditorium, buzzing with anticipation. As Sarah and Mia entered, a wave of anxiety swept over them. The whispers and giggles from the crowd felt like arrows aimed squarely at their hearts. "Are we really doing this?" Mia asked, her confidence wavering like the flickering lights above. "We have to," Sarah replied, adjusting the worn straps of her second-hand dress. "Jack believes in us. We just need to believe in ourselves." With each step toward the stage, their hearts pounded louder than the cheers echoing from the audience. They climbed the stairs, the bright lights blinding them momentarily. Suddenly, the room fell silent, and at that moment, doubt crept in. All those nights spent practicing felt like they had led to this instant, a fragile turning point. As they stood behind the microphone, Sarah glanced at the rows of students. She recognized some of the faces, those who had laughed or turned away when they had needed help. But then she looked to Mia, whose eyes shone with a mix of fear and determination. "We can't let them define us anymore," she whispered, drawing strength from their friendship. The spotlight warmed her skin. "Hi, everyone," Sarah began, her voice shaky but gaining momentum. "We want to share our story with you. It's not just ours. It's every person who has ever felt small, overlooked, or bullied." Mia followed, her voice clearer. "We've faced hard times, from financial struggles to feeling invisible. But we'll never stop fighting for our dreams." At that moment, a ripple of embarrassment swept through some of the students. The popular girls who once taunted them shifted uneasily in their seats. Encouraged by their reaction, Sarah and Mia launched into a heartfelt song they had written together, drawing inspiration from their journey. The melody filled the room, notes soaring high just like their spirits. With each lyric, they poured out their hopes and fears, charge after charge of bittersweet memories transformed into empowering anthems of resilience. As the song ended, the audience stood in stunned silence. Then, one by one, applause erupted, thrilling and shocking the girls. They had shared their truth and inspired unexpected support. But even in that moment of triumph, Sarah noticed the stormy glares from the popular girls, ones who had now become shadows in their own world. They whispered and pointed, trying to regain their control over the atmosphere. Entangled in their own excitement, Sarah and Mia couldn't ignore a nagging feeling. Would they face even worse humiliation after this? Then, as they stepped back from the mic, Jack emerged from the side of the stage, beaming. He had seen their performance and rushed to them while the audience still clapped. "That was incredible. You both were amazing. You brought your truth to life, and it resonated with everyone," he said, his words overflowing with admiration. But before the girls could respond, a familiar voice cut through the air. "What a joke!" one of the popular girls shouted, her sneer sharp enough to cut through the applause. "Do you really think you can change anything?" It was like a cold splash of water hitting them. The warmth of the moment shattered, and doubt clawed at their resolve. Would they always be defined by their past? As they stood there, the crowd's reaction at odds with the jeers, Jack moved forward, ready to stand with them. "It's time," he said, his stance broadening a shield against the hurtful words. "It's time to rise and truly show who you are." With the weight of the upcoming confrontation pressing down, Sarah and Mia locked eyes. They could either retreat into the shadows or step forward into the unknown. Their hearts raced as they prepared for the next act. What would they say to reclaim their narrative and seize the moment? They stepped forward, uncertain yet resolved. "We're just getting started," Sarah declared into the mic, her voice ringing through the hall with unexpected strength. But with retaliation looming, could their courage withstand the pressure? Or would fear pull them back into obscurity? The curtains of uncertainty hung over them, and in that moment, their story was far from over. Jack's confident presence filled the space, grounding Sarah and Mia as they took a deep breath. The jeering from the popular girls echoed in their ears, but beyond the glare of judgment, they felt something shift. The audience was still with them. The empathetic faces of friends and even some unexpected supporters showed they were not alone. "Just keep going," Jack whispered, his voice steady and reassuring. "You've got this." Mia stepped to the front, the mic slightly shaking in her grip but her resolve brightening. "Look," she said, her voice gaining strength. "We know we're not everyone's favorite. We've been part of the joke for too long. We've felt the sting of being laughed at when we just wanted to belong." A murmur spread through the crowd. The students had been drawn in, and for some, the realization that Sarah and Mia were speaking their truth forged a connection. "But this is our moment to rise," Sarah chimed in, eyes bright with passion. "We're not defined by their words. We're not their punchline." With those words, Sarah felt a rush of rebellion flow through her. Fueled by emotions and Jack's support, they were ready to reclaim their narrative and speak up for not just themselves, but others who had been silenced. The auditorium buzzed, hopeful and anxious. The air thickened as the girls' next steps took shape. They had each picked a song that signified resilience. Mia's had always been about finding light in darkness, while Sarah's captured a fierce spirit that refused to back down. Together, they had always found strength in harmonizing their voices, and right now, that couldn't feel more important. "Let us show them what we're made of," Mia said, her spirit ignited. They stepped back into their rhythm, harmonizing perfectly. The music surged through the room, the notes intertwining to form a blanket of unity and strength. Sarah swayed with the beat, and Mia's voice danced right beside hers. Their nerves transformed into exhilaration. Laughter, tears, and resolve blended into a beautiful melody that spoke of shared struggles and triumphs as they sang. The crowd felt a shift. Some students began to sway along, while others wiped tears from their eyes. It was easy to sense that a bond had formed, something much deeper than the petty rivalries before. Yet, amidst the magic of the song, Sarah caught a glimpse of the popular girls again. They stood huddled together, expressions torn between anger and disbelief. Their power was fading, and that made them dangerous. Sarah's breath quickened as she wondered if they might retaliate even harder once the show wrapped up. After each heartfelt note, the applause thundered louder, a roaring tide of support crashing against the walls of their insecurities. As they finished with a heartfelt crescendo, Sarah and Mia locked eyes once more. "Thank you for listening to our story," they exclaimed in unison. The audience erupted into standing applause, a wave of approval crashing over them. But just then, a sharp voice cut through the crowd, muddied with cruelty. "This isn't over." One of the girls screamed, her voice shaking with disbelief as she hurled a small prop from their act. The object soared through the air, a projectile of venom aimed squarely at their success. Everything slowed. The crowd gasped, voices froze in place, and in that moment, Sarah felt time bend around them. Would they let fear smother the spark they had ignited? As the object neared, Jack bolted forward, ready to shield them. But what he did next would shock everyone. The moment hung like a taut wire, ready to snap. Sarah's heart raced. Could they truly finish this battle strong? What awaited them as they navigated through the fallout of their newfound courage? Jack's instincts kicked in, and instead of raising his arms to deflect the oncoming object, he quickly grabbed it midair. The crowd gasped collectively, a wave of disbelief washing over them. Jack held the prop, a colorful star that they had worked so hard to create, with a tight grip, his eyes narrowing at the group of girls. "You think this is funny?" Jack's voice boomed across the tension-filled space. "You think just because you have the power to humiliate, you can tear down others' dreams?" A ripple of uncertainty spread through the audience. Some students exchanged glances as if awakening to a broader reality. Jack stood firm, his body blocking Sarah and Mia from view, but their hearts surged with warmth and gratitude. In Jack's stance, they found not just a protector but a beacon of support in their storm. "Look at them," one girl yelled, her face flushed with embarrassment. "They don't belong up there. It doesn't matter where they belong. They've just shown more courage than any of you have ever shown." Jack shot back, his eyes blazing. The auditorium erupted in murmurs, some in shock, others in burgeoning support for Sarah, and in that moment, Sarah felt more than fear. Anger bubbled within her, igniting something deep. She stepped out from behind Jack, facing her accuser head-on. "You're wrong. We do belong. We've always belonged," she declared, her voice gaining strength. "You just didn't want to see us." The crowd began to chant, a low hum that rose higher, urging them onward. "We do belong. We do belong." Mia found her voice, joining Sarah at the forefront, their energies intertwining. "We are not defined by your insecurities. We're more than just a punchline." The girls stood united, each eyeing the girls who had once held so much power over their lives. With each word, their vulnerability began to transform into strength. They told stories of late nights spent crying, of feeling invisible yet pushing through. Sarah drew on the experience of choosing to sing despite their fears, while Mia spoke of moments where they dared to dream, even when it felt like the world was against them. As the two girls shared their experiences, the atmosphere shifted. Faces in the crowd softened, tears began to flow, and a realization struck like lightning. They weren't just watching a performance. They were witnessing a reckoning. But the popular girls, cornered, lashed out like wounded animals, desperate to claw back their power. One pushed her way through the audience, stumbling toward Jack, anger radiating from her. "Just wait. We'll show you what real power looks like," she hissed, her voice threading through the ambient noise like a dagger. Jack tightened his jaw, ready to protect Sarah and Mia once more. But before he could react, another voice soared above the rest. "Enough!" It was Mrs. Elliot, the guidance counselor who Dee always encouraged them. "This behavior ends now. That sort of cruel energy has no place here." She stepped forward with authority, eyes shimmering with resolve. Wholeheartedly supported by a few faculty members who emerged from the sidelines, she took hold of the moment. Sarah, with her heart racing and breath hitching in her chest, felt hope swell deeper than fear. Could they really redefine their narrative tonight? Could they rise from this moment, not just as survivors, but as champions of their own story? Suddenly, a wave of students began to stand, clapping for Jack, for Sarah, and for Mia. It was a chorus of solidarity, uniting the people once separated by unspoken rules of popularity. As the standing ovation grew, Sarah caught Jack's supportive gaze once again, realizing how important he had become in this journey of reclamation. But then, something unexpected unfolded. Among the stirring of the crowd, a figure stepped forward with purpose. Sarah squinted into the lights, trying to discern the identity of this new challenger so late in the game. Who was it? And what did they want? Just as the tension reached a fever pitch, a silhouette emerged from behind a cluster of students. The figure stepped into the spotlight, revealing a familiar face: Daniel, the quiet boy from economics class. His usual demeanor was gone, replaced by an intensity Sarah had never seen before. "Hey," he called out, his voice steady. "We all have our stories. You think you're powerful picking on those too? You've got it all wrong." The crowd quieted, stunned by his sudden boldness. Daniel was known for his softness, not for barging into confrontations. He took a breath, clearly collecting his thoughts. "I've been a target too. For a long time. You only see what you want to see. You don't see the hurt you cause. Sarah and Mia deserve respect just like all of us. It's time we stop this nonsense and start standing up for each other." A ripple of agreement surged through the crowd. Jack glanced at Sarah, and she could see the light of shared hope reflected in his eyes. He was not the only one who felt this surge of change. Daniel took another step forward, his voice growing stronger. "Before I came here, I went through my own battle. People laughed at my clothes. They mocked my shy personality. But I'm not hiding anymore." There it was, a touch of vulnerability that resonated with the audience. The crowd began to murmur, a mix of surprise and admiration for a boy who had always blended into the background. Who knew Daniel had this fire in him? The popular girls exchanged worried glances. Their power, once absolute, seemed lessened as more students found their voices. Even the faculty, bolstered by Mrs. Elliot, began to take action, voicing encouragement that was palpable in the air. "What do we want?" Daniel shouted, igniting the atmosphere. "To lift each other up. What do we deserve?" The crowd responded in unison, their resolve building. "Respect." It was like a wave crashing onto the shore. Jack turned to look at Sarah, exuding a blend of pride and amazement. "Look at your impact," he whispered, meaning every word. Mia, feeling emboldened, found her stride beside Daniel. "And this is just the beginning. We won't let fear silence us anymore." Her declaration ignited a fire, and the energy in the auditorium surged. Students stood taller, with smiles replacing the tension that had ruled moments ago. But in the chaos of newfound strength, Sarah couldn't shake the nagging uncertainty that crept in. What if this support was fleeting? What would happen when the applause faded? The girls remained at the forefront, daring to confront the faces of doubt. "We're all in this together," Sarah shouted, her heart racing, exhilaration mixed with vulnerability. But Daniel didn't stop. "And I know something important. We've all waited too long for change. It's time to rally together for everyone who has felt alone. In this moment, we can redefine everything. Suddenly, a hand shot up from the back of the auditorium, demanding attention. It was Mr. Finley, their principal, the man whose approval often dictated the social hierarchy. What Daniel just did, this courage, we need to celebrate it. It must become our norm. Gasps echoed through the crowd, a blend of surprise and anxiety. Sarah felt a shiver run up her spine. Could Mr. Finley really mean it? Were they about to witness a monumental shift in the school's dynamics? At that moment, Sarah realized that this was about way more than just her and Mia. This was about all the quiet souls suffering under the weight of popularity's cruel hand. Just then, the silence of doubt was pierced by a loud cheer that arose organically, shaking the walls of the auditorium. And as cheers exploded around them, Sarah felt a brand new itch of hope, a question forming in the back of her mind. Was this just a momentary spark? Or could it ignite a genuine change in their lives and community? With a determined heart, she turned back to the faces surrounding her, every single one lighting up the space. Together, they had taken the first step. But what challenges lay ahead of them as they walked down this path of change? The cheers rang through the auditorium, echoing like a heartbeat that filled the space with warmth. Yet Sarah felt a strange tension in her gut as she watched the crowd transform. They were once silent spectators, now a chorus of hopeful voices. But what if this was just a fleeting moment? The exhilaration coursing through her veins was quickly shadowed by the whispering doubts that clawed at her mind. Daniel stood tall, his presence commanding. Students moved closer, drawn by his courage. As he continued to speak, she could see them looking at him with awe, a shimmer of admiration sparkling in their eyes. He had become the unexpected hero of the moment. But as inspiring as it was to witness his transformation, Sarah couldn't shake the unnerving thought, would they continue to stand together when the spotlight faded? Suddenly, Mia nudged her. "Look over there," she whispered, nodding toward a group of boys sitting near the back. Eyes narrowed, expressions hardened. A few were those very same kids who had laughed at both of them only days before, the kind of laughter that stung deep and lingered long after the sound faded. Their silence felt heavier than before. Can they really change? Sarah wondered aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. Mia shrugged, but the tightness in her voice betrayed her own uncertainty. It has to start somewhere, right? What if it's just an act? Sarah pressed. What if they only want to look good in front of everyone? Mia sighed, glancing back at Daniel, who had now inspired a spontaneous chant of empowerment. She could feel her own heart race, caught between hope and skepticism. As students began to join in, a wave of voices united in solidarity. Sarah's breath hitched at the sheer strength of the moment. Finley stepped forward, still riding the wave of energy. As a school, we must commit to being better. Not just today, but every day. I want to see change. Let us have weekly meetings. Ideas to support one another. His tone was steady, convincing, and for a brief instant, it felt like a promise. Yet Sarah's heart wavered. Could it be that easy? The self-doubt clawed at her, a relentless reminder of how quickly such an initiative could slip into oblivion. The battle against ignorance and insensitivity wasn't over. Not yet. Once the applause faded, the real test would emerge, making sure the solidarity they felt today continued. She looked at Jack, standing firm beside her, and felt a flicker of hope. Do you think they'll really follow through? Jack held her gaze, eyes piercing with determination. If we keep pushing for it, they will. His voice was low but filled with a ripple of confidence. You've started something important. Don't let it go. As the auditorium dispersed, Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. The glimmers of change were promising, but each smile she received felt like a weight pressed upon her shoulders, an expectation she suddenly feared. What if she couldn't carry it? With each step taken toward the exit, Sarah thought of Daniel standing boldly, inspiring change. All at once, the uncertainty shifted to resolve. She turned back and joined Mia, Jack, and Daniel, who were already huddled in conversation about future plans. They spoke of creating a safe space, a beacon for others, But deep down, a question twisted at her heart. What if the past came back to haunt them? What if the bullying intensified as they attempted to rise above it? And so, amidst laughter and dreams, she felt the weight of an uncharted path hanging before her. The only certainty was that the journey had just begun. Would they be able to forge ahead together, or had they awakened a sleeping beast? As they stepped out into the world beyond the school walls, Sarah wondered how they would face the challenges lurking in the shadows. She squeezed Mia's hand, their fear blending with the thrill of possibility. What would the next day bring? What unexpected truths lay just around the corner? The sun had just dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glaze over the school's parking lot. Students streamed out, their chatter blending into a murmur, a soft symphony of hopeful aspirations mingling with anxious anticipation. As Sarah walked alongside Mia, Jack, and Daniel, she felt a nervous energy thrumming beneath her skin. "What's next for us?" Daniel asked, his eyes shining with ambition. Mia shrugged, caught up in her thoughts. "Maybe we can set up a group? Some kind of club?" "Yep," Sarah said, her heart racing. "A place where anyone can come together, share ideas, and support each other." "Count me in, too," Jack chimed in, his enthusiasm infectious. "But it needs to be more than just talk. We need to show everyone that this is real." The fire of purpose ignited within them. They began to brainstorm names, visions, a potential schedule. Each suggestion made the air feel lighter, more full of promise. Yet, that twist of uncertainty settled just under the sweetness of their excitement. "Do you really think the bullies will just back off?" Sarah's voice was low, the shadow of doubt creeping back in. "What if they decide to push back harder?" "Then we push back stronger," Daniel asserted, his brow furrowed with determination. "And what about the others?" Mia added. "What if some students are too scared to stand up or join us?" As those words hung in the air, a moment of heavy silence enveloped them, each of their faces a mirror of the rising tide of fear that churned deep within. The world outside their protective bubble of shared hope felt dangerously uncertain. Suddenly, a distant commotion caught their attention. Across the parking lot, 3 boys surrounded a quiet freshman girl, her eyes wide, her face flushed with humiliation. They laughed, a harsh sound that sliced through the gentle evening air. "Are they really doing this?" Mia whispered, disbelief etched across her features. Sarah's chest tightened. The situation played out like a slow-motion nightmare. The light-heartedness around her faded, and in its place rose a powerful desire to act. "Let us go," Daniel said, a fire igniting again. Without a second's hesitation, they moved toward the scene, their feet pounding against the pavement, echoing the relentless beating of their hearts. "Hey!" Daniel called out, his voice firm, slicing through the knot of tension. The bullies turned, surprise flashing before their smug grins dissolved into sneers. "What do you want, hero?" One of them spat, rolling his eyes without flinching. Daniel stepped closer, standing protectively in front of the girl. "You need to leave her alone. This ends now." A heavy silence fell, thick with unsaid words and clashing egos. The girls rallied behind him, a united front, fueled by a mix of fear and fortitude. But inside, Sarah's stomach churned, dreading how this encounter might escalate. Then, out of nowhere, a figure approached, a tall man, sharp-suited and bearing an aura of authority. The students parted instinctively as he reached the scene. In an instant, murmurs swept through the crowd. "Who's that?" Mia whispered, her skin prickling with anticipation. "I think it's Mr. Harrington," Jack replied, recognizing the local billionaire who lived just outside town. As Mr. Harrington stepped between Daniel and the bullies, an unexpected sense of calm enveloped the space. "Is this how we treat each other in this community?" he asked, his voice steady yet resonating with deep disappointment. Sarah's eyes widened, the unexpected shelter of his presence awakening something deep within her. A new chapter was unknowingly beginning, one that could reshape her high school experience forever. Was this man here to help or to chide? Would this bold move ignite a change? Or would it raise the stakes even higher in the game of adolescence? As the air thickened with uncertainty, Sarah felt a powerful question lingering in the air. What could Mr. Harrington reveal about the human spirit when pushed just a little too far? Mr. Harrington stood tall, his presence radiating authority and compassion. The antagonistic energy between the bullies and the group melted into wary curiosity. All eyes were on him, and for a split second the world felt still. "Hey, you think this is funny?" His voice was deep, but there was an undeniable warmth in it. The bullies shifted uncomfortably, their bravado flickering like a dying flame. Sarah felt a spark of hope. Maybe Mr. Harrington could change how things worked in their school. Maybe he was the adult they needed, someone who understood. But just as quickly, that hope collided with a rising fear. What if this didn't go as they wished? "Get lost, old man," the tallest bully replied, trying to regain dominance. There was a tremor in his voice, but he did his best to mask it with bravado. The other two shifted at his side, unsure of what to do next. Mr. Harrington didn't waver. Instead, he leaned in slightly, eyes piercing into the taller boy. "The real question is, what are you gaining from this? Hurting others?" A murmur rippled through the small crowd. Students nodded softly. Some whispered to each other, caught up in the unexpected confrontation. Sarah felt her heartbeat race, caught between the courage swelling inside her and the fear of what could happen next. Suddenly, the freshman, emboldened by Mr. Harrington's presence, took a step forward. "I'm not afraid of you," she proclaimed, her voice stronger than it had been. The bullies looked at her, stunned. "You think you can just laugh at people and get away with it?" The youngest of them scuffed his sneaker against the ground, looking back at the others for support. But none came. Instead, Daniel and the group moved closer, gathering around the girl, their bond stronger than ever. They were all in this together. "Why don't you all take a good look at yourselves?" Daniel said, his voice steady. "You think you're strong by making others feel weak? That's not strength. It's cowardice." Mr. Harrington nodded slightly, as if Daniel had said something profound. Many students in the crowd murmured in agreement. It was a collective gasp of realization. Strength was not in bullying, but in unity and defense of one another. Feeling powerful, Sarah shifted her stance. "We're starting a club." Her words felt like a declaration. A safe space where no one gets bullied. No one has to feel alone. The silence was deafening. The bullies exchanged uncertain glances, their confidence waning. Finally, Mr. Harrington smiled, something real and warm. "I'd like to help with that," he said, surprising everyone. "If you're willing, I can provide funds, resources, and connections. You will need solid ground for this," he continued, his gaze sweeping across the group. "But remember, change doesn't just happen. You will need to work hard." A sense of exhilaration flew through Sarah, lifting her spirits. They could do this. But at the same time, the weight of newfound responsibility settled on her shoulders. Doubts began to creep in again. Could they really create this safe space? Would they be able to inspire others to join them? While the bullies slinked away, their confidence shattered, Sarah felt hope crystallizing in her heart. This moment marked a junction, a point where they could either forge ahead or retreat back into complacency. "Let us meet tomorrow," Mia said, enthusiasm surging through her. "We'll think of a name and a plan." "Yep," Jack added, his eyes lighting up. "Let us turn this idea into reality." The group dispelled with excitement. But as Sarah walked home, she couldn't shake the feeling that the real work, the real challenges had just begun. What if their efforts weren't enough? What if they faced backlash from the same bullies again? And what if Mr. Harrington was not as supportive as he seemed? Real change required more than just good intentions. As she stared at her reflection in the window, the question lingered in her mind: would they truly have the strength to stand firm against the tide of adversity? As Sarah walked home that evening, her heart felt like it was bouncing off the walls of her chest. The excitement of the meeting buzzed in her mind, but beneath it lay uncertainty. Each step home seemed heavier than the last. She replayed the day in her head, the sound of Mr. Harrington's voice echoing in her thoughts. It offered comfort, but her anxiety gnawed at her, demanding attention. When she finally settled down in her room, She took out a notebook and started jotting down ideas for the club. Safe Space Society? She scribbled, changing it, scratching it out, and trying several names before landing on Unity Club. Felt right. Unity. Togetherness. Yet, as she wrote, doubts surged in again. What if nobody showed up? Or worse, what if they came only to make fun of her and her friends? The room was dim, the only light coming from her desk lamp, a small beacon in the encroaching darkness. She glanced at her phone, the notification light blinking eagerly. A text from Mia lit up the screen. Can't wait for tomorrow. We're gonna do this. A small smile crept onto Sarah's face. She quickly typed back, her fingers flying across the screen. No backing down. We'll show them what we're made of. Just then, a faint knock at her door broke her concentration. It was her brother, Josh. A few years younger but full of energy. He peeked his head in, green eyes sparkling. Are you all right? You've been quiet, he asked, oblivious to her internal storm. Yeah, just planning a school project, she replied, forcing a smile. Can I see it? He bounced on his toes, pulling at her to share some excitement. She hesitated, then nodded. Okay, but it's still kind of a work in progress. Josh plopped down next to her, and as she showed him the name and basic outline for the Unity Club, his eyes widened. That's awesome, Sarah. You're gonna help a lot of kids, he said, face lighting up. You're going to be like the hero. For the first time that evening, warmth unfurled in her chest. I hope so. I really want to make a difference. He tilted his head, a serious look in his young face. You know what we learned in school? A group of ants can carry more weight than a single ant. You just gotta remember that when you're feeling scared. Wow, you're right. She chuckled softly, feeling more at ease. All right, Ant Army, let us get to work then. With renewed spirit, Sarah threw herself back into her notes. Ideas flowed freely, and she began to formulate how they would tackle the issues at school. They needed activities, support structures, outreach, it all built into something bigger, something they could really stand behind. That night, she hardly slept, excitement bubbling over and worries fading into the background. Thoughts of the meeting, the club, and change pulled her forward like a current. What would it feel like to see smiles on the faces of students who felt alone? The vision sparked a fire inside her. When the sun broke the next day, casting golden light across her room, Sarah felt ready. Today wasn't just another day. It was a turning point. After school, the group gathered around her in the library. The atmosphere was electric. Hope shone in their eyes, and laughter filled the space between tall stacks of books. With Mr. Harrington's encouragement, the energy wrapped around them, making challenges seem surmountable. But then, a familiar face appeared, hovering in the doorway, one of the bullies, flanked by his posse. Sarah's heart dropped as a hush fell over the room. Look who's trying to start a little club, he sneered, causing heads to turn. The laughter died. Fear shot through Sarah, but so did resolve. This was the moment they had to face. The voices of support swelled behind her, pushing back against the tide of negativity. Could they truly stand their ground? With a shaking breath, Sarah stepped forward, determination hardening in her voice. We are. And you can either join us or stay out of the way. The room fell silent, breath held. What would happen next? Would they be able to hold on to this fragile resolve? Could the Unity Club truly stand tall against any opposition? The answers loomed as heavy as the challenge before them. The sun streamed into the library, illuminating Sarah's face as she stood her ground, heart racing. The bully's sneer deepened, his friends shifting behind him like a storm brewing on the horizon. Sarah felt the presence of her friends solidifying around her. Jack's confident stance beside her, Mia's fierce determination glowing in her eyes, and Daniel standing ready to speak. This isn't about you, Daniel said, stepping up to the confrontational bully. You've made your point already, but enough is enough. It's time to change how we treat each other. The air was thick with tension, students holding their breaths as they sensed the gravity of the encounter. The bully scoffed, trying to regain the upper hand. Change? You think you're the heroes now? Like anyone actually cares what you have to say. Suddenly, Mr. Harrington's voice rang out from the back, low yet commanding. Anyone can choose to rise up against cruelty. Takes bravery to change the course. And trust me, the community will support those willing to stand up for what's right. Swallowing her fear, Sarah chimed in, we're not asking for permission. We just want to create a safe space for everyone. We're taking a stand. She felt the warmth of her friend's hands at her back. You call this a safe space? The bully shot back, incredulity plastered across his face. What a joke. But this time, support flooded in. Students began to rally behind Sarah, murmurs of agreement rippling through the crowd. We want to be part of the Unity Club, someone shouted from the back, and another voice cried, yeah, we won't let you bully us anymore. A sense of unity formed, weaving its way through the room like a vibrant thread in a grand tapestry. Sarah looked at Daniel, who lifted his chin confidently, and caught Mia's eye, both girls nodding in agreement with the flames of hope in their chests. They would rise together. They were stronger as one. Listen, Daniel continued, his voice steady. We're here to support everyone. Bullying isn't strength, and it doesn't make you strong by tearing others down. Change is possible, and we invite anyone willing to join in. The bully faltered, starting to back down as the atmosphere shifted. Pressure pressed against him as the crowd closed in, reminding him that he was alone, surrounded by the very people he once sought to overpower. Get lost, he spat one last time, but it lacked conviction now, his bravado cracking under the weight of newfound solidarity. Just as he turned to leave, Mr. Harrington stepped forward, the corner of his mouth lifting slightly as an offer of support. You do have the power to change, you just need to choose it. His statement lingered in the air like a promise. Finally, as the bully-esque group slipped away, relief washed over Sarah. The atmosphere transformed, no longer quaking under intimidation but pulsating with encouragement. She turned to her friends, each face radiating with pride and determination. We did it, Mia exclaimed, her eyes glistening with triumph. Sarah could hardly believe it. They had faced off against not just a bully, but against everything that had made them feel small for so long. Hope surged within her, and in that instant, she knew they were firmly on the path toward real change. With this newfound power, the four began to lay out their vision for the Unity Club, mapping plans to spread positivity, host workshops, create safe spaces where everyone could speak freely. They rallied other students to join in and share their thoughts about the challenges they faced. As days turned into weeks, the Unity Club blossomed into a vibrant hub of support. They organized events where all voices were celebrated, art showcases, talent nights, and gatherings that fostered connection. As Sarah stood on stage at the next big Unity Club event, she looked out into the crowd filled with faces of all backgrounds, people who had once felt alone coming together for a better tomorrow. The air buzzed with excitement. Her heart swelled with pride as she took the microphone. Together, we can create a community that stands for kindness and respect. We're no longer going to let anyone feel alone or judged. We lift each other up. Always. The crowd erupted in applause, a wave of energy washing over her. Tears of joy filled her heart as she picked out familiar faces in the audience, people who had once hidden in the shadows, now standing strong, believing in their own voices. At that moment, she felt everything change. This hope wasn't just for her or Mia or Daniel. It was for everyone, reminding them that they all belonged. They had turned the tide, united against adversity as the night wrapped up in laughter and connection. Sarah caught sight of Jack, pride radiant in his eyes. He approached her. You did it. You all did it. No, she corrected gently, we did it together. This is just the start. A sense of comfort filled the air, and she realized their journey was far from over. There would always be challenges ahead, but united, they had the strength to pave the way for a kinder world. Together, they could face anything. As the lights dimmed and the crowd began to disperse, Sarah's mind whirred with excitement and possibility. The echoes of hope rang in her heart. This was their new beginning, an inspired community sparked by courage and passion, and she couldn't wait to see where it would take them next. Before their stories would continue, there was one last thought hanging in the air. This needed to be shared. To everyone watching, the change started with each of you. Don't let fear hold you back. Stand by your friends. Speak up for what's right. The world needs your voice. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep inspiring content coming. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Your voices matter. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share.